I just want to pay tribute to David as a political activist. God only knows if it wasn't for David Sinclair, my ex-husband, and Pan Plamanen and Jack Forrest might still be in jail now. There's a story behind the story which a lot of people might not realize or don't remember. The CIA conspiracy consisted with the conspiracy where the government accused John and Pan and Jack Forrest of blowing up the CIA building in Ann Arbor. That wasn't even supposed to exist, but somebody knew it existed and they put a little bomb in it. Well, out of that came the famous wiretap case. If it wasn't for the work of David Sinclair and Buck Davis and all the other lawyers that helped and all the street people that helped and all the politicians and legislators that helped in the CIA conspiracy trial, we may have had the Patriot Act enacted in 1972.
The Nixon administration, in its wisdom, chose to attack this band of hippies in Michigan, believing that they could crush them, believing that they could not respond, believing that they would not have the will and the wherewithal to resist. And when David Sinclair and David Fenton went to New York and talked Kunstler and Weinglass into doing the case, I became an accidental tourist on the bus of history.
When the case went to trial, Judge Damon Keith took it upon himself to challenge the government's assertion that the government did not have to disclose any illegal wiretaps in the interest of national security. This is what they can do now, right? But back then it was against the law to wiretap people, again, without a court order, but Nixon did it anyway. So our case, the one that David worked on, was pivotal. And Damon Keith, instead of the United States versus John Sinclair, Pan Plamanen, and Jack Forrest, the case became the United States versus Judge Damon Keith.
We did win, and it was because the government wanted us to win. They put it in the judge's face. I still remember when the judge said, "We will order these wiretaps revealed," and they had turned the tapes over to the court. Now they were arguing that let's have the trial first and then see whether or not the secret wiretap evidence would have affected the case. And Keith was going to do it. And Ralph Guy, former chief judge of the FISA Security Court, now U.S. attorney then, on orders from Washington, told the judge, "You don't understand, Judge. We're not going to reveal these wiretaps before or after the trial." And Keith turned to Kunstler and said, "Mr. Kunstler, make your motion." Kunstler said, "Motion to dismiss." Keith said, "Granted." The judge said, the U.S. attorney said, "Give us our tapes back." Keith said, "I'm not going to." They sued him.
Because he took it upon himself before the trial to challenge the government to disclose the wiretaps. The government refused and went to the Court of Appeals, which upheld Judge Keith's decision. It went to the Supreme Court, which ruled 8-0 in favor of Judge Keith, and then the government had to drop the charges against Pan and John and Jack Forrest. The decision about the wiretaps was announced by the Supreme Court on Monday morning at 10 o'clock on June something, I don't know the date, but the Saturday night before the announcement was made in the Supreme Court, which went against Nixon, Watergate happened, and the Watergate burglars were caught in the Democratic headquarters taking out the wiretaps because Nixon had gotten wind of the fact that the decision was going to go against him and he was trying to destroy the evidence. And so wiretap had everything to do with Dave Sinclair.
After we won the CIA conspiracy illegal wiretap case in the Supreme Court, that decision saved the movement in this country, because every national anti-war conspiracy, weathermen, Black Panthers, all of the huge pending anti-war conspiracy in the country were dropped. Because every one of them was tainted by the wiretaps that the Nixon administration chose to take to the Supreme Court. They believed they could crush the spirit of this community, and they chose this community to crush, and they were wrong. And the course of history until George Bush was changed. Now all of that has been lost, and we have to fight to get it back.